Hello, and welcome to another lecture video on developmental psychology. For this lecture video, we would be discussing another developmental stage, which is middle adulthood. Let's get started. Now, the middle age as a social construct. The term midlife first came into the dictionary in 1895, and today, most of the Western culture and industrialized societies recognize middle adulthood as a distinct stage of life with its own societal norms, roles, opportunities, and challenges. However, not all traditional societies recognize the presence of middle adulthood, such as those in rural India and in Gusii in Kenya. Now, middle adulthood in chronological terms is defined as the years between ages 40 and 65. Although the term middle age may connote a meaning of being in the middle of one's life and may start towards a decline in one's functioning, middle age is actually a period wherein a lot of opportunities can still open. Middle years is marked by growing individual differences and a multiple life paths. Some middle aged people can have different hobbies such as running in marathons, tending a garden, or even mountain climbing. Some have a sharper memory than ever, while others feel their memory is beginning to slip. Many adults in the middle years feel a stable sense of control over their lives as they handle a lot of responsibilities and multiple demanding roles, such as running their own households, launching their children to college or even to marriage, and perhaps caring for aging parents or maybe starting new careers. And so, a lot of individuals in middle age can feel a sense of productivity and peak in their careers. Middle age can be a time not primarily of decline and loss, but is actually a period that opens the doors for mastery, competence, and growth. A time of reevaluating goals and aspirations and deciding how best to use the remaining part of the lifespan. Now let's discuss the different developments for each domains. First, let's discuss the physical development of middle-aged individuals. The term use it or lose it is applicable to the functioning or physical functioning of individuals. From young adulthood through middle years, our sensory and motor changes are almost imperceptible. However, during middle age, one may realize that he cannot read a telephone directory without eyeglasses, or probably some people may feel that they are physically slow. And so here are some declines that are usually observed during middle adulthood. So there are age-related visual problems. There could be a gradual hearing loss. There is also a decline of sensitivity to taste and smell, decline of sensitivity to touch and pain, and decline in strength and coordination, manual dexterity. Now, although these are some of the losses or some of the declines that an individual experience in middle age, these are also influenced by other factors such as genetic factors, behavioral and environmental factors. Moreover, there are also structural and systemic changes that occurs during middle adulthood. Changes in appearance may become noticeable during the middle years. For example, the skin may be wrinkled or the skin may have some changes. Skin may become less taut and smooth as the layer of fat below the surface becomes thinner, collagen molecules more rigid, and elastin fibers more brittle. There is also presence of thinning of the hair, especially for men, accumulation of body fat. Bone loss is also one of the changes, structural changes that occurs during middle adulthood because during this stage, calcium is less absorbed as compared to the earlier period. And so this would usually result to bones becoming thinner and even more brittle. Some of the individuals or some middle adults can also experience decline in organ function. Although large proportions of middle-aged and older adults show little or no decline in organ functioning, behavioral Environmental and genetic influences may contribute to the decline in organ function. Unhealthy lifestyle, sedentary lifestyle could contribute to the decline of the heart, the lungs, and other organs. Moreover, middle-aged individuals also experience sexuality and reproductive functioning changes. So one of the common changes that occurs during middle adulthood among women is the period of menopause. Now, menopause is a period wherein a woman permanently stops ovulating and menstruating and can no longer conceive a child. Symptoms that may come with the menopausal stage are hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, painful intercourse, sleep disturbances, and some researchers would show support on mood disturbances, urinary incontinence, and other disturbances. Aside from menopause, there are also changes in the male sexual functioning during middle adulthood. Although males do not experience a quite comparable experience, such as menopause, there are still male sexual functioning changes that occurs during adulthood. Males during this stage may experience decrease in testosterone levels, and some may even experience erectile dysfunction, which can affect sexual activity within the partner. Lastly, sexual activity among middle-aged couples also tend to change as they reach this period, and frequency of sexual activity and satisfaction with sex do tend to diminish gradually during the 40s and 50s. However, the decline in the frequency of sexual activity or satisfaction with one's sex life is not necessarily related to menopause, but it's actually more related to age and physical conditions such as a chronic disease, surgery, medications, and other influences. There are also other factors, or what we call non physiological causes, that may contribute to this decline. So, factors such as monotony in a relationship, preoccupation with several responsibilities, such as in business or financial worries, mental or physical fatigue, depression, failure to make sex a high priority, fear of failure to attain an erection, or even a lack of partner are one of the few causes that sexual activity declines during this stage. Stress also contributes to the decline of the health of an individual, especially on one's mental health. Stress in this stage can be related to a variety of practical problems. And chronic exposure to stress is detrimental to the physical health of an individual. How stress affects health is that when an individual is exposed to stress hormones because of it activates the fight or flight response of the body, chronic exposure to these stress hormones actually activate the immune system that could lead to persistent inflammation and diseases. And so an individual must be able to avoid chronic exposure to stress. Moreover, personality and negative emotionality can also affect health. It could also contribute to added stress to an individual, and so presence of positive emotions tend to be associated with good health. And positive emotions may protect against the development of a disease. Um, Psychological distress becomes more prevalent during this stage because of the complex and various responsibilities that an individual or a middle-aged person holds in this period. Now let's proceed to the next domain of development, which is on cognitive development. Now, the adult cognitive ability is actually distinct as compared to those of adolescents and, of course, younger children. And the distinctiveness of adult cognition goes beyond the post-formal thought proposed by Jean Piaget. And so one of the distinctiveness or one of the distinct characteristics of adult cognition is number one, the role of expertise. And the role of expertise actually comes with age because of the accumulated experiences of the individual for several years, maybe in a particular career or in any experiences. And so experts would say that the role of expertise is actually a specialized form of crystallized intelligence. And so why do mature adults show increasing competence in solving problems in their chosen fields? And number one, it has to do something with how well they're immersed in their own fields, their own disciplines. Advances in expertise continue at least through middle adulthood and are relatively independent of general intelligence, and of any declines in the brain's information processing machinery. So, even if an individual may experience declines in the information processing mechanisms, the role of expertise can actually still help an individual flourish and excel in his or her own career. So, because of the several years of experience of an individual, it has been suggested that information processing and fluid abilities become encapsulated. So, encapsulation is actually a process that captures fluid abilities and expert problem solving skills that is readily accessible to these individuals. And so, what makes this an advantage among adults is that they have this ability to access information or access knowledge that are pertinent and are important in their own careers. And so the role of expertise in a middle-aged person's life in his or her job is actually very crucial and important, especially in training younger colleagues and younger counterparts. Another distinctive characteristic of post-formal thought has something to do with its integrative mechanism or the integrative nature of post formal thought. Now, mature adults are able to integrate logic with intuition and emotion. So they integrate conflicting facts and ideas and they integrate new information with what they already know. Adult individuals interpret what they read, see, or hear in terms of its meaning. And so, how individuals understand a certain event, process a certain information or circumstance is they see it in a more in-depth way as compared to younger counterparts. So younger individuals tend to see situations and circumstances at a service level. However, for adults, they tend to see it in a more substantial and in-depth perspective. Additionally, creativity is also one of the distinctive characteristic of cognitive ability among adults. And now, although creativity begins with talent and creativity may be evident at an early age, for example, children may show creative potential. However, this potential, along with years of experience and its interaction with a lot of experiences and environmental characteristics, it can become a result or become a product which is called a creative performance. And so this pertains to what and how much an adult creative mind can produce. And so creative performance, it depends on personal attributes and as well as environmental forces. And because of this creative performance, it enables adult individuals to be productive in their own chosen careers. Creativity is not strongly related to intelligence, and so individuals with high IQ does not automatically mean that they can also be creative. Highly creative people are self starters and risk takers. They tend to be independent, nonconformist, unconventional, and flexible, and they're open to new ideas and experiences. Next is on the contribution of work on adult cognitive development. And so there is a shift away from early retirement and toward more flexible options that is occurring in this period. And so, because this period is a peak, for most adults, a peak for their career, some may even take several careers. And taking several careers may again require successive or additional education or training. And so, these additional trainings or education and experiences contributes or shapes an adult cognitive ability. So the term use it or lose it does not only apply to one's physical functioning, but it also applies to the cognitive ability of an individual. And work can really influence cognitive functioning. So the more you're immersed with your work, it requires different executive functioning, and so it enhances one's cognitive ability. So, research suggests that flexible thinkers tend to obtain substantially complex work, or a work requiring thought and independent judgment. In return of being immersed with this specific kind of work, it stimulates more flexible thinking. And flexible thinking increases the ability to do more complex work. And so it becomes a cycle wherein a specific complex work contributes to flexibility in thinking, and this newly obtained flexibility in thinking will now again influence an effective and productive work. Now let's delve into the different changes or psychosocial development that occurs during middle adulthood. Before we begin, let's have some facts. Did you know that the idea of midlife crisis has been largely discredited and it is fairly unusual to have one? Did you know that marital satisfaction generally bottoms in early middle age and peaks when children are grown? Did you know that the number reason for midlife divorce given in a major survey is partner abuse? And lastly, did you know that most women actually find an empty nest liberating? Let's first discuss on the personality development that occurs during adulthood. And so we will tackle two main perspectives, the trait models and normative models. For trait models, we'll discuss Macrae and Costa's five-factor model, which is also coined as the Big Five or the ocean. Now, according to Macrae and Costa's assumption that these five factors, they tend to be relatively stable across the lifespan. However, some literature suggests that trait structure can actually have positive changes during adulthood. In middle age, conscientiousness, for example, tends to show remarkable gains, apparently attendant on work experience, even emotional stability continues a steady upward climb beginning in young adulthood. So that means adults tend to be more emotionally stable as they grow older. People also tend to become more socially mature. They become more confident, warm, responsible, and calm as they move through the prime of life, and maturity in turn enables them to be more productive contributors to work and society. Now let's go on the normative models. First, we'll discuss on Jung's individuation and transcendence. And so if you still remember Jung's theory actually posits that the period wherein it's the peak of personal development actually does not begin in childhood, but it is actually during middle age. And so the main goal for Jung, according to him, for an individual to be able to balance all the systems in the psyche. And so individuation and transcendence can only occur during the adulthood stage. Lastly is on Eric Erickson's psychosocial development of generativity versus stagnation. Now this psychosocial crisis, again, is presents two different opposing forces, generativity and stagnation. Now the primary goal or the primary role of adults during this stage is for them to take care of the younger generation and be able to pass down culturally relevant and important skills, abilities, and information and knowledge to younger generation. If the individual is able to nurture and cater to the needs of the younger generation, then most likely they will be able to gain the syntonic element, which is generativity. However, if they live their life in stagnated ways, being isolated, being detached, being withdrawn from society, then most likely they will gain or develop the dystonic element. The basic strength for this period is care, and that is when an individual is able to take care of the younger generation. However, if more of the dystonic element is developed, then the individual would most likely develop the core pathology of rejectivity. Now let's discuss about the issues on midlife crisis. Is there really a midlife crisis? Now, changes in personality and lifestyle during the early to middle 40s are often attributed to the midlife crisis. And the midlife crisis is often viewed as a second period of an identity crisis, wherein the first one occurs in adolescence. And some experts would actually suggest that the midlife turmoil that one experiences is inevitable as an individual struggle with the need to restructure their lives and their careers. However, the midlife crisis is now considered an inaccurate representation of what most people experience in midlife. In reality, a lot of people actually feel productive and feel at the peak of their careers during at this period. It is actually a one of life's turning points. So adulthood or middle adulthood is a psychological transition that involves significant change or transformation in the perceived meaning, purpose, or direction of a person's life. And so, midlife or middle age is not necessarily a period wherein one will question his or her paths, but it's actually a turning point um, to be able to have a meaning, purpose, and direction in life. Next is on the psychological well being and positive mental health among adults. First is on the emotionality, personality, and age of adults. Now, a lot of studies would show that there is a gradual average decline in negative emotions among adults as compared to individuals in a younger developmental stage. Moreover, positive emotionality tend to increase on average as one also ages. And so positive emotions can actually increase during this period. Next is on the life satisfaction of adults. And so some of the factors that contributes to the life satisfaction of a middle-aged individual, number one is social support. So the support that one perceives from friends and spouses and even religiosity are important contributions to life satisfaction. Aside from social support, some personality dimensions could also contribute to satisfaction, such as extraversion and conscientiousness, even the quality of work, and even being able to do leisure time could also contribute to the life satisfaction among middle-aged individuals. Lastly, is the on the well-being of middle-aged individuals. Research would show that life satisfaction, or most individuals at this stage, are actually um, satisfied with their lives. So people in most cultures, with some exceptions in developing countries, tend to be happiest early and late in life, but they tend to be unhappiest in early middle age. And this is what researchers would call a U-shaped curve to well-being. Now, what could possibly be the cause of a U-shaped pattern? Researchers offered three hypotheses in explaining these findings. Number one, by midlife, people have learned to maximize their strengths, adapt to their weaknesses, and subdue their impossible dreams. Two, because cheerful people tend to live longer than discontented ones, the rise in average well being after midlife may be a selection effect. And three, people who remain physically fit and who see friends and acquaintances their age fall ill and die or suffer disabilities learn to count their blessings during their remaining years. And so these three hypotheses may explain why well-being tends to follow a U-shaped curve over the lifespan. Now let's talk about the relationships of middle adults. There are two theories of the changing importance of relationship. One is Antonucci's social convoy theory and Carsten's socio-emotional selectivity theory. Now, both theories suggest that socio-emotional support is an important element in social interaction at midlife and beyond. Relationships are also important to physical and mental health because, again, it it enables the individual to cope up effectively, It allows an individual to gain social support and other resources. And it can also, but however, it could also present stressful demands among middle aged individuals. Parents of adolescents have to come to terms with the loss of control over their children's lives, and so this is one of the challenges that a middle aged parent has to face during this stage. Emptying of the nest is liberating for most women. However, this could also be stressful to couples whose identity is dependent on the parental role of those who now must face previously submerged marital problems. So once the individual leaves, or once the child is mature enough or an adult, already an adult, and leave the nest, these phenomenon could be stressful, especially to those parents. Again, number one, whose identity is dependent on their parental role and whose household is faced with submerged marital problems. Another is that middle-aged parents tend to remain involved with their adult children, especially in the context of grandparenthood. Conflict may arise over grown children's need to be treated as adults and parents' continuing concern about them. Adjustment tend to be smoother if the parents see the adult child as moving toward autonomy. And so these are just the distinctive characteristics of the social relationships among middle-aged individuals. So to sum up, middle adulthood is not only a phase marked by declines or detriment of different functioning, but it's actually a period where it enables an individual to be at the peak and be productive in their own chosen careers. So there are skills and abilities that are present in adulthood that enables them to grow more as an individual and to be able to contribute not only to their own children, but to the society at large. So this lecture ends here. Thank you for listening and goodbye.